If you were doing national anthem now, the 24-hour rolling news networks would probably be a lot less significant than social media is today.
Hello and welcome to Freelance Pod. My name's Suchandrika Chakrabarti and I'll be your host. Freelance Pod is all about how the internet has changed the world of work. On each episode, I'll speak to a guest about freelancing, side hustles, the gig economy, jobs that weren't possible before the internet, and how moving from an analogue to a digital age has revolutionised the way we work. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation, I'd love to hear from you. So please do follow Freelance Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can also join the Facebook group, and you don't have to be a freelancer to get involved. So, we've got some new Black Mirror coming out tomorrow. Netflix has released a trailer for the new Black Mirror event, Bandersnatch, and it looks like it'll be a kind of computer game themed, set in the 80s film, possibly the choose your own adventure, we don't know yet, but we'll probably find out at about 8 AM GMT tomorrow, which is when new Netflix series usually drop. So we're looking forward to that. And I thought in anticipation of Black Mirror Season 5 starting, that you'd like to hear this interview I did with Charlie Brooker back in October. It was around the release of the book Inside Black Mirror, which is a behind-the-scenes look at the show and how it's been made since 2011 up to Season 4. And I spoke to Charlie over the phone about how technology has changed work and life, how it impacts on his work and how he makes the show. And yeah, it's good fun. We had a laugh, and he even tells me which TV shows he's been watching. So it might give us some insight into Bandersnatch and the rest of Season 5. Who knows? But this may well help with your anticipation. Enjoy.
Fire away.
All right. So how has this year been so far?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all right, isn't it? Obviously the world is a massive trash fire, but other than that, it's good.
Well, I was going to ask you, if you made the national anthem now, what would be different?
If we made it now?
Yeah, like this year. Like this week?
Well, for one thing, we'd probably have to outdo it being a pig, because people would assume that this was based on the scurrilous, probably untrue rumour about David Cameron that was in that book. So we'd probably have to make it a completely different challenge, so to speak. I don't know. We'd probably. It's hard to know because it was such an outrageous thing to be suggested at that time, and now the world has got progressively more surreal. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. How would you? I don't know. So it would all be quite different. I don't know.
So going back to all the old episodes for the book, what has struck you as things that have worryingly become real since 2011?
Well, the national anthem for one, and then there's
no, that's alleged. Please, there are legal things around this piece.
Well, we don't know. Yes. So it almost certainly didn't.
Thank you for remaining legal.
The Waldo moment was one that turned out to be worryingly prescient, but lots of them. I mean, like there's been lots of stories recently about drone bees potentially pollinating flowers. I saw a story the other day about a company offering sex robots based on deceased lovers, which is sort of Be Right Back, which was an episode that I think there was a sort of AI chatbot thing that was based on dead people, where I'd seen that aspect of it potentially coming to light. I hadn't really anticipated at this point the sort of 3D flesh version becoming a thing. So, I mean, almost all of them seem to be in some way coming true. Here's one that I really thought was miles off, was crocodile, in which they can sort of tune into your mind's eye, as it were, and see what you're recalling. And I was looking at a story the other day where some researchers have come up with something worryingly similar to that. So all bets are off.
They can look into our minds now.
They can look into our minds. Yeah, I'm sorry. They can. They can download. They could just download your darker, most innermost thoughts and fears and just use them as a screensaver for a laugh on their phone. I don't know who they are, but yeah.
But you read it somewhere.
That's what they can do now. That's what they can do.
Oh.
But I think you could pretty much start any conversation, couldn't you? In a pub, you could, or whatever. You could say, you know what? You could claim anything and say, you know what they can do now.
And they could say it was very Black Mirror, actually, which is a weird compliment.
Yeah. Well, everything's gone very Black Mirror at the moment. It's all free publicity.
When you went back and kind of sat down with people that you've worked with, making a book about a really futuristic TV show, what kind of worked for you and what made you think this is really odd?
It's strange talking about, it's interesting because I think, and one of the things I really like about the way the book is laid out is that, so what happened was we all had sort of individual chats with Jason Arnott, and sometimes it was me and Annabelle on our own, and sometimes it was both of us together, and then he was sort of talking to other people, some via email, some over the phone, some in person. And so what happens is you get a sort of conversation. So it's interesting that people's memories slightly alter, and so we left some of that in the book, where it's like, you know, one person will go, oh, I think we were going to design this to look like a green fridge with knees or whatever. And somebody else goes, no, that's not true at all. So it's interesting how people's recollections of how things worked out are somewhat different. That's one thing. And then you realize how much, hopefully people looking through this will see how many people there are involved. It's easy for us looking back to forget how many different iterations everything went through on the way in between the sort of page and the screen, and how decisions you make during the making of it might sort of massively affect how something feels at the end of the day. So sometimes there were quite often bits where I'd go back and sort of look at some sort of early design or something and go, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Was this whole thing where it was going to... That's sort of terrifying when somebody reminds you of huge chunks of it that you can't remember.
Yeah, that's really weird, isn't it?
It's not... Yeah, it's weird. It is weird, isn't it, where you just forget, you know, because I suppose like anyone, like the viewer sees the final product and working on the show, you're aware of all the stages in the creation of it. But actually, when it comes to after a while, you forget about all of that. You forget about that and it becomes the final product. So it's quite interesting to sort of go back in time and look at the various struggles or challenges that went on.
Because 7 years isn't that long, but when you've been making something like this show, it's a lot of experience. And also, I feel like technology has sped up over the last decade.
Yes.
Much more. Yeah, it has, hasn't it?
It really has.
What do you do with that? How do you always stay one step ahead of it? Does going back over the old episodes remind you that was it easy? Is it hard to stay one step ahead of technology?
I mean, in a sense, it's easy because technology is becoming so miraculous. It means we can kind of show our gizmos and gadgets within the show doing fairly impossible things. And as long as it feels grounded, you kind of buy it. So in that level, because the public in general is prepared to accept technological miracles now, that makes our job a bit easier. And we have a sort of rule on the show that we don't sort of show anything magic. So there has to be a sort of explanation as to how it's working. And that's a rule we sort of bend occasionally. But sort of like Be Right Back, it's quite silly how she brings the actual sort of robot version of him to life in a bathtub by pouring nutrients in. I think we're still several decades away from that, or I hope so. But yeah, definitely. I mean, we are living in a period of dizzying sort of technological change. You know, you get kind of psychological whiplash trying to keep up with it. So in that respect, it's sort of oddly easy. And we haven't done anything yet. I don't think there's anything particularly that you look back and go, well, that's massively dated. I mean, obviously, there's actually the interfaces of things. If you look at National Anthem or something like that, it's a snapshot of 2011, which was sort of when it was set. And that, you know what, if you were doing National Anthem now, the 24-hour rolling news networks would probably be a lot less significant than social media is today. That would be a big change, actually. Yeah, we haven't done anything yet where I've looked back and it's like looking at somebody riding a steam train. There hasn't been anything that now looks massively outdated.
Well, speaking of nothing's like magic, everything's explained. I always think of Black Mirror and I watch The Good Place. So I just think they deal with almost exactly the same issues. But with them, it is kind of magic or belief. Do you watch that show? You had
you know what? I haven't. I know, and I haven't seen it because I'm behind. It's one of those things where, and annoyingly, I had the twist for the first season spoiled for me. I know. So because somebody told me, I can't remember. I was like, so I haven't. So now it's like, it's at what point do you start climbing the mountain of like, it's 3 seasons they're in now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Season 3.
Yeah.
And when you're on the outside of season 3, it's like, at what point do I?
It's quite easy. It's quite an easy watch.
That's what I should. I know, because literally, everything I've heard about it makes it sound like something that is absolutely totally up my street.
It's quite fun. Did you even manage to watch The Bodyguard?
You know what? I haven't seen that yet. I haven't seen Bodyguard either.
I'm not sure how you're going to.
I'm so far behind on everything. I've only seen 1 episode of Killing Eve. I haven't seen Bodyguard.
That's good, Killing. Yeah,
I know.
Watch the rest of that. Yeah.
I've seen. Although I've seen, you see, Barry. I was watching Barry. I'm halfway through Barry, which I really liked. That's really good, and that's similar to Killing Eve. Sorry, we're talking about other shows now. But there's that, and but I was watching Better Call Saul, which I love.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I was just promoting some other programs.
Listening back to the interview with Charlie Brooker has got me even more excited about season 5 of Black Mirror dropping tomorrow on Netflix. So, like other Black Mirror fans out there, I'll be sitting in front of my laptop with Netflix ready to go at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and let's see what we get. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation, I'd love to hear from you. So please do follow Freelance Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can also join the Facebook group, and you don't have to be a freelancer to get involved. If you enjoyed this episode of Freelance Pod, please do rate and review us. This helps other listeners find the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you get a notification every time there's a new episode of Freelance Pod. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.